that. And so we give people, we'll go ahead and get started, but as they come in, then they'll catch whatever we've got. So I did want to start out this afternoon by reminding everybody. I say reminding because I've sent out an email, but just want to make sure everyone's received it, that we have posted the notice of the continuation of funding application. That's on the DHS website for the Community Youth Employment Program, and that's really good news because it allows us to plan a lot better. It allows us to have the continuity from year to year, which is what we've been hoping for. Again, everything always depends on action of the General Assembly, the legislature, and the governor, and so we do still need the legislature to appropriate funds for us to be able to spend them, and we need the budget to meet with the governor's approval. But it is it's a good start because usually our practice has been, we know in the past several years that legislative budgets have been either slow in coming or non-existent, and so that's a real shame over the past couple of years. And we're hoping to have some more stability moving forward. So our general practice in the past has been that if the program is included in the governor's budget, then we'll be able to go ahead and get started with it as of July 1, and that's what our hope is here moving forward. So that's encouraging. It's good news because it allows us to plan. I know some of you may have questions about how to plan for the program in FY19. So for example, we need you to apply again for funding. The difference is this time around, only those applicants who are currently funded providers will be eligible to be funded again. And so, you won't be competing necessarily against other providers. One thing that comes up is people sometimes are not quite sure how they want to budget or what kind of program they want to operate. Again, this is a continuation application. So the idea is that we are really continuing your grant that you'd previously written for. The difference is that the grant that you previously wrote for was for an 8-month grant period, and of course we expect that that when you reapply for funds, that you will apply over a 12-month grant period. We expect that means increased costs for your grant program and service provision to you. So for example, if you've got an extra 4 months in the year, plus you may not have the
Oh, Aaron, you're breaking up. Aaron is on the road today, so.
If you lose me, give me just a moment here. I'll be right back with you.
We can hear you now. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience, and I apologize for having to be out of the office today and on the road. I will only be able to stick with you here for a little bit longer, so I'll try to get this in for you. But the idea is that we do expect to see, a 12-month program, which may or may not mean more services for youth. So if you have an additional 4 months, the hope is that you will be able to serve more youth than you've previously served. You're not necessarily obligated to serve more youth than you previously served, but I do want to be clear too that if you, if you propose to serve the same number of youth, but you apply for 50% more funding to serve the same number of youth, that's going to be questionable. So the idea is, yes, there are more funds available to operate a 12-month grant than there would be to operate an 8-month grant. However, again, the funds should be consistent with the number of youth you serve. So, and if you find that that over the course of the last year that you've had difficulties with your program and you don't believe that you can continue to serve the same number of youth, that's acceptable too. But again, we would expect that the funding would be proportionate, really, to the number of youth that you serve. So as long as you are budgeting, a reasonable amount for the size of the program, you can certainly apply that way. and we may reach out to you during the process with questions, but about maybe why you've proposed major changes, but you are able to do that. So those applications will be due in about a month, the first week of May, I believe, and so look forward to getting those. One other thing I wanted to mention too about the reports that Natasha is going to talk about today. The reports are a requirement. I know some of you who were CYEP providers last year will know that we kind of struggled with reports last year just because we just had some difficulty in deciding how we were going to structure those reports and where those reports were going to come from. So last year we had required monthly performance reports. This year we opted to go with quarterly performance reports because that's kind of the standard for the state. That's what is shown in our boilerplate of your contract. And so we have been working with the WorkNet to be able to create the quarterly reports from the WorkNet, create and submit those reports from the WorkNet with the idea that the reports should be consistent with what you have been what you've been putting into the WorkNet, what if you have actually been reporting in the WorkNet. I know some of the difficulty with that is we've been developing some of the tools for reporting in the WorkNet. And so I absolutely understand that we're still working on this. I don't expect everything to be perfect with this first report. If the numbers don't accurately reflect, we'll have an opportunity to maybe to give you an explanation as to why. But the idea is we wanted to be able to generate the report from the WorkNet. The report is supposed to report on outcomes related to the performance measures in your contract. If you haven't seen your contract and you haven't seen the performance measures, you definitely need to take a look. There are about, there are 20, some I want to say 22 or 23, I believe, performance measures that we will measure, and then there are standards that are acceptable and or kind of percentages where we would consider them acceptable or not. And so what we want to do is to try to create a logical process in the WorkNet that will capture the data that we need to be able to report on those performance measures, and then we'll capture your progress towards that. And so that's actually, it's a lot tougher process than it sounds, which is why, sometimes you may see things on the WorkNet and you say, well, why are you asking about this? Or what is the relevance of this question? Well, Natasha and I have tried to work to develop something that's not just useful to you. That's kind of the primary goal, is we want the WorkNet to be useful for you as a way of organizing information related to the program, but we also want it to be useful to meet the compliance and accountability requirements that we have with the program. The goal is, if you are actively working to keep your information in the WorkNet up to date, then when it comes to reporting, you won't have to compile the report. Ideally, the WorkNet will compile most of that information for us. And so as long as you are regularly inputting the things that we've got built in there, that you should be able to have everything you need available for the reports. Okay. And with that, I will turn it over to Natasha. I was going to take some time to answer questions on today's webinar, but I think what I'm going to do is, if you've got questions related to the continuation application, feel free to email me, and I'll try to get you a detailed response, or you can call. Again, I'm not in the office today, but you're welcome to call another day. I will try to make sure we're answering questions for the continuation application, but the overall goal of the continuation application is to give us an idea of what kind of program you plan to offer in fiscal year 19. And we assume, since again it's a continuation application, that the program you plan to offer in FY19 will generally be similar to what you're offering in FY18, with the exception that it's going to be a longer program, hopefully with not the same kind of startup costs or time requirements, since it will be just continuing from the earlier year. All right, Natasha, have we got anybody typing questions?
Nope. Nope.
Okay. Well, I'm going to leave it to you. I am going to go ahead and disconnect from the call. I apologize for not being able to remain with you today, but Natasha, if you don't mind, if things come up on the webinar today that need some attention, if you don't mind to forward those my direction, and I will try to view the recorded webinar later. All right? Have a good afternoon.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Goodbye.
Okay. So one of the things that today I wanted to just cover a couple of things that came up since the last time we met and some updates that we made, and then I want to go over this periodic performance report that Aaron was talking about. So for the first thing that came up, or one of the things that came up, is we've had one of the requirements for you is to complete the worksite evaluation, I believe after the 30 days on the worksite. And there was a question because the worksite evaluation had required an end date, and we don't want to have the end date because obviously these are worksite placements we want to continue on for a while. And so Cody, my programmer, removed the requirement for the end date. So, and this is for the worksite evaluation. So whenever you do the worksite evaluation, or you have to get that all set up, then you'll still see the field for end date, but it will not be required. The next thing is we updated the case note area. I got one open. So we had some people that had requested that we add a contact date. So whenever you go to add a case note, you're going to select a task, and then you can backdate the case note. And you enter your subject in your case note. And then you can identify whether it's going to be sent as a message, an email, or a case note without sending a message. And then once you add the case note, then you'll see that you can see the task that's associated with it, the contact date, the subject, the case note. And then we also put a message here that you can see, was this case note sent without sending an email message, or was it sent with just a message, or both an email and a message, and who it was sent by and when it was sent. So those are some updates that we made to case notes. If you haven't taken a look at the worksite placement dashboard, those are available out on WorkNet as well. I'm going to go ahead and just mute the phone lines for now, just so we don't have any background noise, but if you would like to have your phone unmuted, then just let me know in the chat and I can do that. Okay. So those are just a couple of updates that were pushed out since the last time we met. And right now, Cody, my programmer, is working on our reports. Okay, so how you get to the report is you go into your Community Youth Employment Program group, and then you'll see at the top we added another icon, and it says Report. So you click on Reports. Now this will change because there's different parts of the performance or the periodic performance report that we will have to continue to add onto because we've talked about and identified the requirements, and now we're in the process of building that section or those parts of the tools. And so this will change, the look and feel of it will change, but I wanted to be able to show you this so you can kind of, get a feel for it, start using it, start looking at it. If there's any questions, you can ask me. We can make updates as we are moving through, continuing to build out this report section. So right now, Cody has started with the enrollment status report, and you can see it looks much like the dashboard, okay? Each of these items would link to a filtered list of customers so that you can make your updates for that particular customer, based on, that performance measure. So if you see somebody that, they're verified eligible, and you see that they're not enrolled, you're like, oh, okay, well, all I have to do is go through and update their data that's in the system. So this is just the overall look and feel for it at the moment. And again, like I said, this is going to be evolving. We'll be adding more. We'll be making more updates. This is out on test right now. Once I have some more information, and then I'll be able to push out parts of this to production, so you can start looking at it with your numbers, and then we can really do a deeper dive into the different areas and see if there's more adjustments, tweaking that needs to be made to this section. Okay, so with that, that's just our look and feel, well, the starting point for this performance report. But I do have a document that I do have, yes, okay, so yes, so will the information updated from the report show immediately? Yes, so it'll be based on whatever's currently in the system. And this document is down in the bottom of your left-hand corner of your screen, and I have it marked as draft because we're still building it, but I wanted to give you a preview, and so we can start, maybe this is something that you already have internalized, you've already got it all figured out. So it might be at different levels of understanding and maybe different ways of explaining this information, because there is really quite a bit. And Aaron and I did spend quite a bit of time, really diving through and trying to define what does this performance measure mean, and how are we collecting that data, and how are we going to present it and make it useful. So, I just generically, the purpose, I'm sure, will evolve into something a little bit more in-depth, but the purpose of this report is to really give you kind of like this program level of how you're going. Are you on track? Have you already met your goals that are related directly with your performance measure criteria? And so starting out, right now, when we want to put this out there next week, you can just start reviewing and really updating your customers' data. You can see where maybe some areas are that you might need to update. You can use these tools to help you identify which customers may need to have that particular information updated within Illinois WorkNet to have them fall, into the right areas for your performance measures. So then we have our instructions on how to get to this. So you just go to your CYEP tools, and you use the little reports menu item at the top. And actually, I just got to take this off because really it's about selecting the right report. So we'll leave it at that for the moment. And then, okay, so here's some information or notes about the performance reports. We'll go through each of these bullet points, but if you're like me, you'll have to sit there and think about it for a little bit to let it all kind of soak in. So the reports that you saw that we had up on the screen, we wanted to use the similar type of approach where we're going to give you access to a filtered list of customers. So you know exactly which customers need to have which criteria updated because we have that identified in the performance report. We don't have this submitting function in there yet because we're still building it out. But the idea is that you would be able to run these reports in the middle of a quarter, but you don't submit that report until that quarter has been completed. So in this example, quarter 2 could be submitted as of April 1st, and quarter 3 would be visible, but you couldn't technically submit quarter 3 until quarter 3 is complete. You will be able to view your archived reports. So you have like a printer-friendly version that has all your numbers of where you are, but then you would still have that online version where you could click on the link and see that filtered list of customers. You will have 4 quarterly reports and then a year-end report. And really the only difference with that year-end report is we're asking 2 questions. You have to confirm, did they attend 2 provider meetings, and did you share at least 1 job vacancy with your local FCRC? Now within this performance, within these reports, we will have a color coding type system. I don't know if we should necessarily have it as just like a dot here, or you know, something like a little icon to indicate if you're on track, off track, or achieved that goal. We had talked about like a little icon here, or maybe we can even make the entire line item a particular color. And then we'll also have, you know, like the different text or, you know, accessible type information, or, you know, set up so that if you have challenges with seeing different colors, then, you know, you'd still be able to identify whether it's on track, off track, or you met the goal. So what this really boils down to is the overall, when we talk about color coding, if you are, it's really based on the, like at the very end, your overall goal. So it's to kind of give you, and just because maybe you're not on track on quarter 1, whenever you get to that percentage within, you know, your goals, whatever your goals are, then, you know, you could be on track, you know, yellow for quarter 2, quarter 3, maybe even, you know, green, like you've already met or exceeded that goal. So it's just an indicator, so you can easily tell what areas that you need to maybe, you know, step up the game on, or, you know, update the information in the system to make sure that you continue to be on track to meet your goal. Now, as an example, we have the very first performance measure is the proposed versus actual enrolled youth. So the goal for all these is, you know, 100%, but then they've identified what is an acceptable percentage. So we have literally what the goal is and then the acceptable percent. Now for this first example, if you have, so 90% is the acceptable percent. So let's just skip down to these 2 bullet items. Let's say that my proposed enrollment is 100 youth. My goal in quarter 1 is to have 25 youth enrolled. However, 90% would still say that I'm on track to, I'm at an acceptable level. So in that case, 90% of the 25 is 23 people. So when I was talking about color coding or using an icon or some other indicator to identify if you're on track, not on track, or achieve that goal, this is what we're talking about. So the on track, not on track, achieve that goal is based on this acceptable criteria right here, so 90%. So if I, for my first quarter, had 23 people, it would mean that my goal for the first quarter was 25 people. I'm on track because I have 90% of those people. If I would have had 22 people, then it would have made my line item show as not on track. That's okay. I mean, it's, you know, it's that may happen. So what we wanted to do, and it'll be built into the system, is that for any of the items that are marked as not on track, or the red items, then you would just provide a narrative, you know, just a brief explanation as to why that might be, why that particular item is not on track. Okay, so that was my trying to explain our color coding and our goal, and what this on track and not on track is based on the acceptable level for each quarter. Okay, so for each of these items as well, we wanted to highlight, you know, bold, make it easier for you to tell which one is the actual performance measure. So we have to have, you know, the goal is to have 100% of the people are going to be, you know, verified as, 100% of the people that are verified as eligible are also enrolled. So we have, and we want it to, in this particular case, we want it to be based on, like if I say that I'm going to serve 100 people, then we want to make sure that we get up to 100 people. Okay, that's what this line item is. But we also wanted to give you visibility of why maybe some of your other people aren't in this performance measure line. Like, what is keeping them from being identified as part of your goal? And so as we went through each of these performance areas, we tried to identify the different scenarios that would say, oh, well, you know, these people are identified as eligible, we just haven't enrolled them yet. I didn't realize we didn't technically enroll them. Let me go do that. So you just click on those two people, mark them as enrolled, and then they would pop up here in this line item. And then also, so you can take a look at, you know, if they're, you know, verified as not eligible, well then you can't enroll them. So, you know, but you could at least see why those people aren't showing up there. Or I'm sorry, I said that wrong. If they're verified as not eligible, you can't do anything about it. They're not going to pop up here. Or if you just haven't done their eligibility yet, that's a grouping of people. You know, you could verify the eligibility, enroll them, and then they would jump up here into this line item. Okay, same thing with the proposed versus actual job placements. So you can see who's been placed and who's not been placed. As we go through this, you'll see that of the people who are enrolled, we want to make sure that they all meet their eligibility criteria. With the way we have the system set up is that this should be 100% all the time, because the system is locked down to say that if you're not eligible, then you can't be enrolled. Okay, and this particular item is related to that eligibility question. We had mentioned early on in the progress area, when you verify eligibility, one of the required questions is, did you hear about, were you referred by the local FCRC? It's not, doesn't have anything to do with whether they're able to be enrolled or not, but this is one of the performance measures, and that's why we had asked this particular question. Okay. So with these as well, I can see us right now, I can tell what I will need to do is to make sure that we either have like an info bubble or maybe like a link that's like next steps on here that says, you know, if you're not in this grouping right here, then go to the progress page, the eligibility, you know, section or something like that. So we can, I'll make sure I'm just going to type that in here right now so that I remember to tell Cody. Pretend to make that a link. And I think that would probably be the best way to handle each of these, to tell you where to go if the information needs to be updated. Okay, so the things that Cody has out there right now on tests are the first few sections that we had that I just went over. The next sections that he's working on right now, and you know, hopefully we can get this out there on Monday, at least so you can start looking at it, not as though you'd be able to submit it, but you know, to really start, you know, getting into it and seeing if there's additional information that we need to provide or tweaks that need to be made. We can go ahead and get that rolling as well. The next set of sections that he's working on are the assessment sections. So we have the areas that are related to, you know, did they complete the NOFO, 21st Century Skill Assessment? If they completed the NOFO, who earned their NOFO certificate? So you can see a list of people that did and didn't earn that particular certificate. The percentage of youth that completed their career cluster inventory. You can see who did and who didn't. And if they didn't do it, then just they can go into their account and do that. Percentage of people who completed their pre-assessment. Now with the pre-assessment, we don't say that they have to pass their pre-assessment. We just say that they have to complete the pre-assessment. So you can see who completed and who didn't complete. Okay. Of all the people who were enrolled, how many of them completed the Employment 101 activities? Now, this is something that's going to require an update to the progress page because we need to, you know, as we, like Erin and I had talked about the different ways that we could, you know, do this. And so what we had decided is that for each of these customers on the progress page, there's going to be a little check that says that you as the provider can go through and check, mark for that person that they did complete their Employment 101 activity. So you'll have a link that you can already go to see their information in Employment 101, but then you'll also be able to check that they completed that particular set of activities. And then based on the number of people, how many of them completed their post-assessment? So again, just complete or didn't complete. And then of that, how many of them had demonstrated like a skill gain, basically. And then in order to be in this line item, we identified that they had to get an 80% on the post-assessment, or they showed improvement on the post-assessment compared to the pre-assessment. And then the next set of questions from this point on, those are going to be related to the ISEP, which is the Individualized Services Training and Employment Plan. So we are currently putting that together based on our conversation, with Aaron about what should be included in the ISEP. So that will be coming in the somewhat near future. It'll probably be a month before we actually get that part of it, plus the reports and so forth for the ISEP piece of it. I see that Andrea had let's see, the customer placement data shows my customer with no placement total. I will have to look at that. I'll log into your account and look at that. Because to me, I think it's pulling into more okay, so for your first question, to me it sounds like I'll have to log in as you and look at your information, but it sounds like it's pulling in additional accounts from overall. And then with youth that have an IEP with below cognitive level, I will save this question for Aaron. I know that they have the percentage of people who take it, how many, complete, I have it here. How many of them earn their NOFO certificate, but, that might be something that, the performance measure stays the same, but if you have an area that it's like, it's not on track, then you would just say, we serve a large X percent of our people fall in this category, have an IEP, and that's why we're not meeting that level. So I think that's reasonable. For the ISEP, it'll be a couple weeks before the ISEP's available, but then we'll have to add on a couple more weeks for it to be on the report, most likely. So I would say it'll be a month before it's on the report, the ISEP part of it. But the other sections, I can refresh my memory here on supportive services, individualized case plan. So probably like this question right here. Well, it's still about services, so that would still be with the ISEP. This is what I'm thinking of. We'll have to be updating, we'll have to update the progress page anyway, and we're going to be adding this attainment of high school diploma, oh wait a minute, actually, for the people, for the youth who are out of school youth, re-engaged in education. So in order to get the percentage of youth with improved educational outcomes, the way we're going to handle that is to have that as a question on the progress page. And again, we went through different scenarios of what's the best way to, for us to collect this. And this is where we landed, is to add this particular question onto the progress page for out-of-school youth. And so, I could see this as an area where we could start updating that information, having have that section out there prior to having the ISEP pieces. Yeah, and then the job placement pieces, we can have those out there as well prior to the ISEP. Okay. There's just a lot of information here, and again, you can go ahead and start taking a look at it, like starting to digest it. Maybe you already have this all figured out, and this is not anything new to you. Then that's wonderful. But I would encourage you to kind of look through this and start saying, I kind of have questions about this. What does this mean? And then we can collect your questions, and then again, maybe like next week we can go through and really start clarifying some of those areas. All right. Does anybody have any questions? All right. Well, that's all I have for you today. I hope to have this area, let me go to the reports. I hope to have this section and the assessment report out there for you to start looking at. I'm assuming that we'll have updates that need to be made to these, but at least I'd like to have you start looking at them, becoming familiar with them, so we can really start deep diving and making sure that everything is lining up where it should be and that we haven't forgotten anything. So, all right. Well, if that's it, then everyone have a fabulous rest of your week, and we will talk to you next week. I will go ahead and move my screen share out of the way, so if you joined us a little bit later, you can go ahead and log in now or check in now. So, all right. Thank you, everyone.